Thank you. Have a good day. So the New York Predators. Anyway, welcome back to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program, Target Individual Experience. Wow. Just like start up in a damn way and just, talk about the blocking theme, man. So anyhow, so while I was on the bus in New York, the New York Predator Department, right, drove in front of the bus to target me and then start driving by really, really fast. Oh, look, number 32. Yeah, no, I gotta, the shit that they do, man. All right, I'm going to pause this and I'll be right back. Trying to record. So while I had to deposit a check, and it's a refund that was due to me, and it wasn't a big check, it's a small check. And as I'm depositing the check, the machine, you can hear, like the machine that had like an intercom. So the whole time, because there's a person using that same machine ahead of me, and I wasn't hearing that noise, right? And I talk about how they use the intercom and stuff, like particularly in buildings, particularly in Pam's building, the building next to Pam's building, they will use the intercom, right? Like all of a sudden, I'll start to hear the intercom, going off, right? They used to do the same thing in my building too. As soon as I approach the door, somebody would, you hear the intercom, right? And again, I think I've recorded in Pam's building too. I've done a video on that too. But they were doing that, and I'm just like, wow, that's weird. Never have I heard that. Not since I've never used a bank and where I'll deposit a check or withdraw money, and that was happening. But again, what it is that they do, again, is to try to manipulate me into send me subliminal message about, if I receive my disability, they'll continue to engage in this false investigation, or they'll continue to monitor me, or listen to me, and so forth and so forth, right? Again, the same sort of subliminal message, right? And what that does, is to, again, for a lot of people, once they start to fall into that trap and that those sort of attacks, and they're psychologically and cognitively damaged, then all of a sudden, when they do those things, they don't go and and contest these things, right? So that's basically what it is that they want. You know what I'm saying? But they, again, the way how they manipulate people, right, to try to affect their to affect their psychology as well as cognitively, their ability to do these things in terms of contesting these things, because they know what it is that they're doing, right? And again, it's to manipulate the public, those who are using us as TIs to engage in this sort of experiment to see if they can manipulate people into not filing for disability, particularly if they are disabled, and particularly when they've been disabled by the state, right? Who have engaged in state-sponsored terrorism against victims of their crimes and so forth, right? Just like how, for poor people, they may not apply for assistance, right? So it is creating a society in which people are so manipulated that they're not going to apply for these things, right? Number 32. So for example, I was like I said, because they're target me and they monitor my activities, my online activities and so forth, over the couple of days since I've been in the house. They've been hacking into the network, restarting my computer and so forth and so forth. I'm just like, why is my computer restarting like that? It never happened before. I checked the temperature to not my computer was overheated or anything like that. The highest temp that I saw on my computer was around 50 something degrees. So that's way, that's what we would call cool, right? You know what I'm saying? And And that's not idle. That's just from watching videos, right? 113277. Right? Okay, so somebody shared a post on Facebook, and it was talking about the starving people in Sudan, right? Because Sudan, there's a civil war in Sudan that's orchestrated by the Israelis and the Arab Emirates, right? The Arabs, some Arab nation, not all, right? In trying to get control of Sudan, North and South Sudan, right? And so in this image there's a picture of starving children and women and men, right? And so like I talked about the hijacking of my consciousness. So and there's two pictures, right? So, but I'm more focused on the picture with the starving black people of Sudan, right? But, and they use their car horn, like beep, And again, it's like I said, a lot of this stuff that's happening today is to cause more widespread hunger, poverty, because I talk about the sadistic nature of the people who rule, right? And we have yet to understand their psychology, their dark triad state, right? And they get pleasure out of seeing people suffer. I keep saying you got to understand the sociopathic and psychopathic relationship that white people have towards black people, right? Particularly in the Western Hemisphere, in that they get enjoyment and fulfillment out of seeing black people suffer, murdered, and so forth, right? And again, this is not my opinion. This is factual. Right? All you got to do is look at the system I talk about. How this system is created to exploit, particularly black people, right? In its inception, to murder, to re-enslave, right? And to profit off of the negative outcome of what the system do to black people. Again, it's not opinion, it's facts. All right, I'll talk about the predatory nature. As soon as black people start to elevate within the society, they create predatory programs to steal our wealth. All right, and in particular within black women, because they are so gullible. I would advise you to go and watch a video by Dr. Amos Wilson called "Gullible Christians," right? And also watch Dr. Claude Anderson video on what's it called? I think it's called Bad Behavior, something like that. But Dr. Claude Anderson. All right, he talks about what white people continue to do to black people, and because black people are believers, right? They rather get on their knees in prayer instead of looking at the reality and coming together to solve the problem, because we don't have problem solvers in our communities, right? We don't, and that is by design. And anybody that have the mindset to be a problem solver, particularly in the realm of trying to solve black people's issues in the system, they are attacked and they are shut down. But you can go to school and get your education to solve white people's problems, but not your own. See, white people send their people to school to solve their problems, right? When white people are overdosing because of opioids and meth and stuff like that, they went to the lab. They took the time. Their scientists took the time. They did the research to solve what? Their problems, right? When poor white communities were suffering a pandemic of STDs, they sent in the health department, education, to educate their people to solve their problems, right? In the black community, what do black people do? Do we send our scientists to the lab? Do we send our social scientists to come up with concepts and problem solving, ideas to solve our problems? No. Right? No. But you will see as Fanon in his book Black Skin, White Mask, When he talks about how Negropeans will get an education, they get a good job, and all of a sudden they think that they're white, right? So they get to solve white people's problem. They don't get to solve the problem in the black community. They don't even want to recognize it for the most part, right? Because they know that their future and in terms of livelihood dependent on them solving white people's problem. So ultimately, they understand where the power exists, right? But yet they will H32 FFW. We need a flag on there. Keep telling you guys. Taking out her phone, looking at the license plate of the vehicle. Watch. I'm telling you guys, you saw the cursive subliminal threats. Look at the other one too. Watch it. You guys can not be able to see their eye where they are looking, but I can definitely see it. But anyhow, right? So when I talk about these things, or others talk about these things, you know, for those of us who understand and who can give solutions, they don't want that. They don't want that. And you know, you hear black people say, well, you know, why don't you do this and do that? Like, they tend to ignore the fact that we are attacked. Those of us who understand what's going on, we are discredited in many ways, right? And they will never allow us to gain any sort of financial wealth to solve our problems. They will never let those among us who have financial wealth to become conscious enough to solve black people's problem, because they have the economic means to do so. But what they do is that they take away their mindset, their ability to view these things as a problem to their people, and recognize and understanding that they themselves are black people. They, you know, so they can connect with other black people, but they don't do that. They sever that through psychological and economical manipulation, right? And other cognitive warfare and so forth, right? And that's exactly what they do. So you will never find a wealthy black person, right, who is invested and interested in solving the problem of black people. It will never happen. It will never happen. And if their mindset shifts to become that way, they will be attacked. They will be attacked. Make no mistake about it. They will engage in economic sabotage against them, psychological warfare against them. They will do all that is necessary in order to prevent them from doing such things. So like I said, Negropeans are heavily into the church, but the churches don't solve our problems, right? And the churches used to be a staple which can solve black people's problems, but not anymore. Not anymore. Well, not with these pastors are so manipulated. They're pimped out pastors. They are manipulated. A lot of times they will use women in the church to manipulate and to get involved with these pastors, because these pastors understand the power that they hold over particularly single women in the church. I saw a lot of them want single women in the church, not only because they are their biggest financial supporters, but because they can sleep with them, right? Because they can use their authority and the position that they're in to sleep with these women, right? And a lot of pastors do. You may not hear about it, but you know, talk about the woman who was having an affair with a pastor. He refused to leave his wife, and she literally shot him, right? You know what I'm saying? So they are willing to even engage in those risks and abuse of their authority to manipulate women to the point where, you know, women would do some shit like that, right? You got to understand and know and realize what's going on. And you got to recognize the signs of what it is that they do, right? And like I said, this is why the black community will continue to be dismantled, and black family will continue to be dismantled, because for the most part, we have become so selfish, right? This is the one thing that they said, the white supremacists said going forward after the civil rights movement, is that we cannot allow this to happen again. We cannot allow the black family to be together and to support organizations that will benefit them. And this is why I say it's important, particularly for black people, to put their children in self-defense classes in terms of how to use weapons properly. Also, to come together, right, as black people, not as Christians, not as Muslims, what have you. You got to put that shit aside, right? That's our biggest problem, right? Our biggest problem is that we as black people, we put religion over who we are first, and that is to our detriment, and will always be to our detriment. Instead of putting your blackness first, right? Because every other group of people, I guarantee you that, they don't put their religion first. They put who they are as a people first, not through religion. Religion comes second, right? And so we need to understand that, and we need to recognize these things. But we are a people, like I said, who are not able to think collectively, but we rather believe collectively, because belief makes us feel good, right? And particularly for the women, right? Because it's all about them feeling good. You know what I'm saying? It's all about that. You can't tell them the truth, because then you're toxic. So whatever that doesn't make them feel good, whether it be words or actions, they're not interested. They're not interested, right? I mean, I watched a video of a big woman saying that she wants a man that's fit, and I keep saying this, but she doesn't want a fat guy. I watched the video again of Kevin Samuels telling an average woman, just because she makes a lot of money, that doesn't mean that she's going to get high value men, right? Particularly you have 3 kids, you're overweight, you're not into fitness, you don't like fitness, you're leading with your masculine self and the amount of money that you make. Men do that shit because men do that to attract women, right? And that's the natural order of things. But when women do it, they don't attract men. They don't attract men. Those things will never attract a man. That's why I say you can see women who making 6 figures who can't find a husband, right? But you can see women working at McDonald's who can find a husband. Why? Because if they're fit, if they're friendly, if they're feminine, a man don't care whether you work at McDonald's or not, if you're a woman. But for women, right, they don't even want the average man. And I'm talking about the average man who makes a decent salary, who makes an average salary. They don't even want that. And so they would rather be the third and second choices in terms of who these men want to have sex with, but not want to marry. And they will settle. They will have all these standards, but then they will still settle for what's way below their standards, right? When that should be their reality, right? That should be them being realistic. Now the bus is taking a long time to come, because again, look her coming across the street. Look at the hand signals, right? Look at that. Look at that. See what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Right? So yeah, right. So those women will always settle though. So they may say, oh, I'm not settling. But guess what? They still got somebody to come and scratch their itch once in a while. Or they may have that side dude that all they get sex from. You know what I'm saying? But then how do you expect to find a man who's going to take you seriously when you're not even taking time for yourself to even heal or to even get help, but they're acting in the same way and they're having sex with the men that they're not really interested in being in a relationship with? What does that say about you as a man, right? And it's sad because the vast majority of our sisters, particularly the European ones, they think like this. They behave like this, right? So now what happens when they get into a man, they meet a man that's interested in them? The sex might not be as good. Next thing you know, they're going back to the dude that, the sex is good at, but he's not into them in that way, right? And they're single, still looking for the next man who has. And I'm just like, women have become so deluded, and again, it is not their fault, because this society and feminism have done numerous damage to their psyche. Right? That when it comes to making a sensible decisions and sensible choices that's going to benefit them, that goes out the window. It goes out the window. Women will talk about, oh, I'm not dating a short guy. So first time I've seen this video, I just saw a video where you have a dude asking women, right, whether they would prefer a short guy with $1 million or a guy that's 6'4" and broke, right? And the majority of these women said they would never accept the short guy with $1 million, right, over the guy that's 6'4" and broke. Because they're like, if we could do something about that, we can work together and build together to get that $1 million. I'm just like, I have never heard that shit before until a couple of days ago when I was watching that video. And that shows you the mindset of our women, right? Particularly, like I said, the European women. It's just like they say, which one you prefer, the bear or the man? They say the bear. Okay, well, put them in a cave with a bear by themselves and see what's going to happen, right? I mean, even the worst guy that they in the cave by himself, they will most likely come out alive, right? And I'm just saying hypothetically, right? Even the worst guy. But with that bear, you're never going to come out of there alive. But the fact that they'll say they'll choose the bear, and then still turn around and say they want a man that's a provider, no, why don't you get a woman that's a provider? You know what I'm saying? Why don't you get a bear that's a provider? But they don't want to think that way because, again, it's trend. Anything that's trendy, they jumped on, right? They will, they follow trend. They don't follow common sense things. They don't read anything. They don't like statistics because they always like, why you always bring up statistics? Because it's factual. For women who claim that they're so educated and have all this degree, yet they don't like statistics, right? I mean, that's something that you got to understand. Why is that? Why? So you got to look beyond what it is that they're saying and look beyond what it is that they believe in and look at the exterior. What forces is driving these narratives in their mind? What forces is conditioning them to think like this, to believe like this, right? But, we're too, we as a people, particularly Negropeans, and they make up the vast majority of us, when it comes to, seeing things from a broader aspect, they can't do it, right? They see what's in front of them and that's it, right? They have no self-awareness, no consciousness of self-awareness, no situational awareness, right? No realistic view on reality and life. You know what I'm saying? They don't. And so what you see, and again, I keep saying, every decade you will see Negropeans' mindset get worse and worse. And it is intentional because it takes a decade to change a person's personality to who you want them to be without them even knowing it, using cognitive warfare, using coercive persuasion programming and so forth, psychological manipulation, right? The use of technology to shape our minds in ways that we don't recognize and we don't understand, we can't see, right? So it is, one of the things that I talk about a lot, because until we come to that understanding, they're going to continue to have us fight against each other. They continue to manipulate us, manipulate our young people, right? To keep on repeating the same destructive cycle, right? Which Negropeans love to call curse. It's not curse. It's psychological conditioning. It's social conditioning. It is a war that we cannot recognize and we cannot see. At least, very few of us can recognize it and can see it. So we need to understand that, right? We need to understand that. And these people are hell-bent on destruction. And when black people start to wake up collectively and move away from religion in terms of putting religion at the top and putting themselves and each other at the top, they're going to start to engage in even worse behavior towards us. And then this is where, like I said, Negropeans is really going to begin to wake up and to see their reality. Because when it comes to, white people love it that black people are asleep, that they can continue to manipulate us, and we don't recognize those manipulation tactics, right, and methods. But when black people start to recognize these things, they will become extreme violent. They will become, because this is what happens. Anytime black people build anything, what do? There's always white backlash, right? So they will engage in methods and tactics and all sort of warfare to do what? To destroy that. And that comes to our minds also. That the minute we come to an awakeness as a group of people, and you see in your Predator Department, there you go. Yeah. Look, oh, you showing yourself now, huh? Right? Again, whenever I make these videos and I talk about certain things, look at them. Right? So this is what they'll do. And this is how they will engage in these things, right? The minute you start to speak the truth, and you start to wake up, and you start to realize, look, looking at me walking around here. What are you looking down at the dirt for? Hilarious in their threats. Oh yeah, buddy. Oh yeah. Look at him over there. Look at him over there. Who you waiting? Are you looking at the bank? Oh, because I went to deposit the check at the bank. But anyway, it was a ridiculousness, right? Okay. So where's the bus? Again, I'm talking about they will delay the bus so that they can engage in this sort of subliminal messages, subliminal threats, and getting the nigger peons to participate in targeting. Right? Because that's what they do. Look, I see him standing there. He keep looking at me and then looking in the direction of the bank. And I gotta laugh. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But anyhow, you know what? Let me end the video and I'm gonna start a new video.